What if I told you that the most dangerous wounds are often the ones you can't see? While physical scars heal and fade, emotional abuse leaves invisible marks that can last a lifetime. The scary part? Most people don't even realize they're experiencing it until years later. Today, we're diving deep into every type of emotional abuse. And I promise you, by the end of this video, you'll never look at toxic relationships the same way again. But before we start, I need you to understand something crucial. Emotional abuse isn't just about obvious insults or screaming matches. It's often disguised as love, concern, or even protection. The abuser doesn't wear a sign saying, "I'm going to hurt you." Instead, they slowly chip away at your reality until you question your own thoughts and feelings. Type 1, gaslighting, the reality thief. Let's start with the most talked about form of emotional abuse, gaslighting. But here's what most people get wrong about it. Gaslighting isn't just someone disagreeing with you or having a different memory of events. True gaslighting is a systematic pattern of making you doubt your own perception of reality. The gaslighter will tell you things like, "That never happened," "You're being too sensitive," or "You're remembering it wrong," even when you know for certain what you experienced. They'll move your belongings and then act confused when you can't find them. They'll make promises and then deny ever making them. The cruelest part? They often do this with such confidence that you start believing them. Your mind becomes your own worst enemy, constantly questioning what's real and what's not. This isn't forgetfulness or miscommunication. This is intentional psychological manipulation designed to make you dependent on their version of reality. Type 2, silent treatment, the Cold War of relationships. Here's something nobody talks about enough. Silence can be just as violent as screaming. The silent treatment isn't just someone needing space or time to cool down. It's a calculated punishment designed to make you feel invisible, rejected, and worthless. When someone gives you the silent treatment, they're essentially saying, "You don't exist to me right now." They'll ignore your texts, refuse to acknowledge your presence, or act like you're not even in the room. The worst part? They'll often do this without even telling you what you supposedly did wrong, leaving you scrambling to figure out how to fix something you don't understand. This form of abuse is particularly cruel because it triggers our deepest fear of abandonment. Humans are social creatures. We need connection to survive. When someone withdraws that connection as punishment, it feels like emotional starvation. Type 3, emotional manipulation, the puppet master's game. Emotional manipulators are master chess players, except you're not even aware you're on the board. They use your emotions, insecurities, and love for them as weapons against you. They know exactly which buttons to push to get the reaction they want. One common tactic is guilt tripping. They'll say things like, "After everything I've done for you," or "I guess I'm just a terrible person then." They make you feel responsible for their emotions while never taking responsibility for yours. Another manipulation tactic is love bombing, followed by withdrawal. They'll shower you with excessive affection, gifts, and attention, making you feel like you're the most important person in the world. Then, just when you get used to this treatment, they pull back, leaving you confused and desperate to get that feeling back. The manipulator creates an emotional roller coaster where you're constantly trying to earn back their approval, never realizing that the game is rigged from the start. Type 4, verbal degradation, death by 1,000 cuts. Words have power, more power than we often realize. Verbal abuse isn't just about obvious insults or name-calling. It's about the slow, steady erosion of your self-worth through carefully chosen words and phrases. The abuser might disguise their attacks as jokes, saying hurtful things and then claiming, "I was just kidding," when you get upset. They'll criticize your appearance, intelligence, or abilities in ways that seem almost casual, but leave lasting damage. They might compare you unfavorably to others, saying things like, "Your sister would never act this way," or "My ex was so much better at this." These comparisons plant seeds of inadequacy that grow over time. What makes verbal abuse so insidious is that it often happens gradually. The first insult might shock you, but by the 100th, you've become numb to it. Or worse, you've started believing it. Type 5, isolation, building invisible prisons. One of the most effective ways to control someone is to cut them off from their support system. Emotional abusers are experts at isolation, but they're clever about it. They don't usually say you can't see your friends anymore. Instead, they make it uncomfortable, difficult, or seemingly unreasonable for you to maintain other relationships. They might create drama every time you make plans with friends, or sulk and give you the silent treatment when you return from social events. They'll criticize your friends and family, planting seeds of doubt about their intentions or loyalty. Gradually, you find yourself making excuses not to see people, canceling plans to avoid conflict, or simply not mentioning your relationships to keep the peace. Before you know it, your world has shrunk to just you and the abuser, exactly where they want you. Without outside perspectives, you lose your ability to see the relationship clearly. Your friends and family serve as mirrors, reflecting back your worth and reality. When those mirrors are removed, you're left with only the abuser's distorted reflection of who you are. Type 6. Financial control, the golden handcuffs. Money represents freedom and security in our society, which is exactly why financial abuse is so effective. The abuser doesn't need to physically restrain you if they've made it impossible for you to survive without them. This might involve preventing you from working, sabotaging job interviews, or creating chaos that makes it difficult to maintain employment. They might control all the bank accounts, credit cards, and financial decisions, giving you an allowance like you're a child. Some financial abusers are more subtle. They might encourage you to quit your job so you can focus on the relationship, or take on debt in your name without your knowledge. They create financial dependency that makes leaving feel impossible. The message is clear: you need me to survive. This type of control is particularly devastating because it affects not just your emotional well-being, but your basic ability to meet your physical needs. Type 7. Intimidation and threats, the shadow of fear. Not all threats are verbal. Sometimes the most powerful intimidation happens without a word being spoken. The abuser might punch walls, throw objects, or get in your face during arguments. They're careful not to actually hit you. That would leave evidence. But they make sure you know they could. They might threaten to hurt themselves if you leave, or threaten to hurt people or pets you care about. These threats don't have to be explicit to be effective. Sometimes a look, a gesture, or a past incident is enough to keep you walking on eggshells. The goal is to create an atmosphere of fear where you're constantly monitoring your behavior to avoid triggering their anger. You become hypervigilant, always scanning for signs of their mood and adjusting accordingly. Type 8. Emotional withholding, the drought of affection. Love, affection, and emotional support shouldn't be rewards that you have to earn through good behavior. But that's exactly how emotional withholders operate. They use your need for connection as a control mechanism. When you displease them, they withdraw not just communication, but all warmth and affection. No hugs, no kind words, no emotional support when you need it most. They become cold and distant, making you feel like you're living with a stranger. The withholding often extends to physical intimacy as well. They might reject your attempts at connection, or make you feel unwanted and undesirable. This rejection cuts deep because it attacks your most vulnerable need, to be loved and accepted. Type 9. Projection and blame shifting, the hall of mirrors. Perhaps one of the most confusing forms of emotional abuse is when the abuser consistently blames you for their behavior. They never take responsibility for their actions, instead making everything your fault. They might cheat and then blame you for not meeting their needs. They might explode in anger and then say you provoked them. They project their own negative qualities onto you, accusing you of being manipulative, selfish, or abusive. This constant blame shifting serves two purposes. It protects their ego from having to face their own flaws, and it keeps you focused on defending yourself rather than addressing their behavior. Type 10. Minimization and denial, the erasure of your experience. When you finally gather the courage to confront the abuse, the abuser's response is often to minimize or outright deny what happened. They'll say things like, "You're overreacting, it wasn't that bad," or "You're too sensitive." They might acknowledge that something happened, but downplay its significance. "I was just having a bad day," or "Everyone argues sometimes." They make you feel like you're making a big deal out of nothing, even though your pain is real and valid. This minimization is particularly damaging because it invalidates your experience and makes you question your own reactions. You start to wonder if maybe you are overreacting. Maybe it wasn't that bad. Maybe you're the problem. Now let's talk about the invisible scars. The thing about emotional abuse is that it doesn't leave bruises you can photograph or broken bones that show up on x-rays. The damage is internal, psychological, and often dismissed by others who don't understand. But make no mistake, emotional abuse is real abuse, and its effects can be just as devastating as physical violence. If you recognized yourself or your relationship in any of these descriptions, please know that your experience is valid. You're not crazy, you're not overreacting, and you're not alone. The path to healing begins with recognizing what's happening. Knowledge is power, and understanding these patterns is the first step toward reclaiming your life. Remember, healthy relationships involve mutual respect, open communication, and support for each other's growth and independence. Love should make you feel more like yourself, not less. If this video resonated with you, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more content about healing and recovery. Your support means everything and helps this information reach people who need it most. And here's something I'm curious about. Which of these types of emotional abuse do you think is the most difficult to recognize when you're experiencing it? Or maybe you have a story of how you finally realized what was happening in your situation. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your experiences might help someone else who's still trying to make sense of their own situation. If you found this video helpful, you might want to check out my previous video about 8 questions trauma survivors are too afraid to ask. It dives into those difficult questions that keep you up at night, but that you're scared to voice out loud. Many of you have told me it helped you feel less alone in your healing journey. Until next time, remember, your healing matters, your story matters, and you matter.